Our text today is from chapter 13 of the book of Judges. And Manoah said unto the man of God, How shall we order the child? What shall we do unto him? Today we begin the story of one whose name became a household word in Israel, the man Samson. The stories of Samson have been told and retold down through the centuries to the present day. He was an extraordinary man in an extraordinary age. And the best of our authors have tried to catch the spirit of the man in poetry. And the best of our artists, the Rubens and the Rembrandts, have tried to capture the stature of the man on canvas. Everything about Samson seems larger than life. His superhuman deeds of strength as well as his besetting sin. No man ever accomplished more than he did or had more serious faults. Some men consider themselves fighters, some lovers. Samson was both. All of the elements of epic drama are played out up in this man's life. Adventure, passion, heroism, tragedy. There were others who led armies into battle for Israel. Samson fought on alone and single-handed. Others were called to serve God in the prime of life. Samson was set apart before he was born. And how God created a cradle and a home for the man is the subject of our text today. The chapter begins with a familiar pattern during this period of history. The children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and he delivered them into the hands of the Philistines 40 years. This time their punishment came from the south, from the seacoast, as the Philistine invaders infiltrated farther and farther into the heartland of Canaan. It had not yet come to open warfare. For a people who no longer fear God have nothing left but the fear of men. Unopposed, the Philistines took over gradually and pressed down their yoke of iron upon the necks of Israel. But our text takes us to a secluded mountain village of Sora, about 6 hours west of Jerusalem, in the tribal inheritance of Dan. There lived the man Manoah and his wife. Their home was far from the beaten path, but at its hearth still burned brightly the true faith in an ever-darkening age. But there was one heartache in the life of this couple. Their house had never rung with the laughter of a little child. No baby had been born to bless their union. And that was sorrow enough for any couple in Israel. But add to that the cruel remarks that unthinking people make in jest, as though they could control the issues of life. And a real and the imagined finger pointing as though God were punishing them. For the law of Moses read that if you break faith with the Lord of life, then you get the opposite. Emptiness, barrenness, and death. To the wife of Manoah did the angel of the Lord appear, as he appeared centuries earlier to Abraham and his sterile wife Sarah. And as he appeared later to Zacharias in the temple and to Mary of Nazareth, behold, thou that art barren and bearest not, thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Manoah's wife was a remarkable woman, as we shall see. A great soul, a large heart, a quick wit. And she had a capacity for receiving what God would give her. Knew how to adapt her life to God's plans for her. And an altogether lovely knack for bringing out the best in everybody around her. The angel also told her, thou, not only is your child God-given, it is to be God-devoted and dedicated. See to it that you drink no wine nor strong drink, nor eat any unclean food. For the boy that is to be born shall be a Nazarite, set apart for God from his birth. And he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Upon the woman this vow was laid, in fuller measure upon her son. That is the law, the vow of the Nazarite. The very word means set apart. And a person took upon himself the Nazarite vow for some period of time, long or short. There were two tokens of the Nazarite vow, one inward and one outward. A man was, or woman was to decline all of the dainties of life, the fine wine, the raisin cakes that came from the vine, and outwardly the hair was never to be cut as long as the vow was kept. 7 locks of hair. Now that is the key to the story, the secret of the history of Samson. Samson's strength did not lay in his long hair pillowed upon the lap of the beautiful woman Delilah, but in the fact he was set apart for the Lord. The man's strengths and his weaknesses were bound up always with his faithfulness or unfaithfulness to the Lord. Set apart for God, Samson could do works of superhuman strength. But apart from God and in his own strength, he plunged into disaster. And so the man Samson became a mirror for the people of Israel to look into. As the Nazarite nation set apart for God, there was no marvelous thing they could not accomplish. But as the people, unfaithful to God, there were no depths of degradation into which they would not plunge themselves to destruction. The child of hers was also to have purpose and destiny. He shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. What woman's heart wouldn't want to hear that about her son? Her boy was to do what her own very hopes yearned for. She was to raise up a son who was not to live for himself and of himself a life of comfort and ease. She never was to try to raise up a child who was intellectual or fashionable or sociable or influential. Her one mission was to raise up her boy to be a man, strong and brave to fight God's battles and her people's battles too. And she was to inspire the boy with her own spirit and hope and faith and enthusiasm. And that promise of God was very real to the woman. One pictures her, she runs home and tells verbatim her story to her husband Manoah. Well, in many marriages that you know of, the husband took a different viewpoint on this than his wife did. Sounded to him like way too much enthusiasm and too little practicability. For one thing, she didn't ask the things that any man would ask of the man. What's your name? And where did you come from? But Manoah did not belittle his wife, nor did he ignore or accuse her of daydreaming. The man knew that on this issue, the both of them had to be agreed. And so he betook himself to prayer, asking God to convince him as surely as he had convinced his wife. And such a prayer never falls on deaf ears. The man of God returned again to the woman, who ran and brought back her husband. And to me at least, the most amazing remark in the whole chapter is what Manoah said to the stranger. How are we to order the child? And what shall we do unto him? That is the prayer of every parent. We realize that we are not good enough and we are not wise enough to rear up a child without God. The most careless and insensitive man has to realize when he has the whole life of another in his hands, he needs more of patience and strength and courage and perseverance and joy. Who of us has never been moved by the wonder of it? When a new soul begins its life in this world, cradling that wee bit of a thing in your arms, the mystery overwhelms us and engulfs us. As we gaze down upon this brand new personality, absolutely unique and distinct from every other on earth. On what strange voyage? From what unknown ocean has this little vessel touched our shore? We are on to feel the touch of God's own fingers on our own, as His hands place this new life into our keeping. And you don't think it's a precious, infinitely so, till you lose a life, till your companions who journeyed with you drop out. And so here, how shall we order the child? And what shall we do for him? Manoah is asking. Parents know that a large responsibility lies with them. God ain't going to do it all for us. For most of us, God's guidance has come to us from our parents. The faith of our fathers is the fertile soil for our own faiths also. How shall we order the child? And what shall we do for him? Parents today seem to be driven by distraction. By all of the problems of planning for a child. And is it a boy or a girl? What if it's handicapped and not healthy? And should we give the child an allowance or let him earn his own way, mowing lawns and babysitting? Should we encourage piano lessons or playing baseball or tap dancing? Oh man, and then what about school? And those grades on the report card? and their social life and choice of friends, and then the trauma of puppy love and teenage dating. And we know there's a line in here somewhere between being firm and being hard, between a rigid code of conduct and suffocating the child's spirit, between tying him to your apron strings or letting him live the life that God gave him to live on his own. How shall we order the child? And what shall we do unto him? And the odd thing is, the man of God repeats to Manoah what he said to his wife. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. That seems strange to us. We do not think that is sufficient parental guidance for rearing children. Two basic facts. The new life is from God and the new life is for God. But people, you get that one straight, the rest will follow. It all depends on what your belief about life is. If you think new life is the biological creation of your own sexual prowess, if you think the creation of the child is the happenstance, random meeting of genes and chromosomes, if you believe it's just the scientific cause and effect of ovulation, fertilization, gestation, and parturition, if there is nothing for you of God and from God and for God, that will set the tone for everything else that you do. But if you believe that children are an heritage of the Lord and the fruit of the womb is His reward, if you believe that God is the giver and author of life, source and sustainer of life, your life, my life, all life, well, then that will color all of your thinking and planning and doing. Whose life is it? Now it worked for Manoah and his wife in the hill country of Zorah, for Hannah and Elkanah in the rangeland of Ramah, for the priestly parents of John the Baptist, Zechariah and Elizabeth, it worked, and for the carpenter's family of Nazareth, Joseph and Mary, it worked. The child grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. And what more could any parent want for his child and God's child? Amen.